Silver Doctors, live on air. Silver Doctors live. It is Friday. It is Friday the 28th of February. It is 11:01 a.m. This is Silver Doctors live. My name is Paul Half Dollar Eberhardt, and I will be your co-host I'm your solo host today. I don't have Mike joining me. He's traveling to an undisclosed location in Area 52. So I'm going to be flying this plane here solo today, but I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and everybody for joining me here this morning. Since I'm flying solo today, go ahead and give me a thumbs up in the chat if my audio is sounding okay. I do believe it is sounding okay. Let's see here. Silver 1050 from Sam Ting Wong. Something Wong, that's good. Something Wong. Let's hope Something Wong doesn't have the coronavirus. That would not be good. I don't think we're going to 1050. We'll see about that. But I would like to thank everybody for tuning in today. Please give me a thumbs up in the chat if I am sounding okay and if the audio is good. Okay, Bobby Jones, I appreciate that. Thank you for giving me a thumbs up. David, thanks. E.T. Preppin'. That's right. I just want to go ahead and thank a couple people for tuning in. We got Glenn Delaire. We got Low Blood Pressure. We got Bobby Jones. We got Jason Haberl. We got John Michael Karma. We got Armed Resistance. Thank you everybody for supporting me and tuning in. One of the things that I thought about is there's just so much going on right now that, I was kind of debating whether I wanted to just come on since it's just me kind of talking into a microphone. So if this is a good idea, let me know and we'll keep it going because there's several things that I want to talk about today. There's several important things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about the markets. Markets are crashing, gold and silver going down. We need to talk about the CDC and their new campaign to spread facts, not fear. And there's a lot of problems with that. We need to talk about, a crisis with healthcare workers, that the anecdotal evidence is becoming overwhelming. We need to talk about the panic buying. We need to talk about the U.S. military. We need to talk about Korea. We need to talk about Mexico. We need to talk about conferences, cancellations, and upcoming events, and a whole host of things. So there is just so much to talk about today because it's so hard to keep up with, but we will keep on top of it. That's what we're here for. I will open up the phone lines. I do have the phone set up. I got Skype set up. I'm not going to take any calls right now, so please don't try to call in just yet. Maybe I'll hit on each of these points here and then open up the phone lines and take a call as we go through the topics here. Let's just start out, with the markets. This is the Dow. This is the stock market here. And you can just see, just plummeting all week long. We gapped down again today. And, stock market's crashing. I mean, there's no way around it. This is the stock market crash. If we look here at gold and silver, gold and silver are crashing as well, right? So they're going down with the markets. Well, they're not crashing, right? They're just going down with the markets. 1657 is low print I'm looking at with silver right now. I think I'm looking at 1572 with gold as the low print. I want to bring everybody's attention first just to kind of what is going on, because I know the first thought that might be on everybody's mind is, why is silver going down? Why is gold going down if the stock market's crashing? Aren't they supposed to move opposite of the stock market? And yes and no. I mean, yes and no, right? So we're going to look at this for a second with a article that I put up a while ago. When silver's hit a 16 handle. And here's just what I want to point out, right? So this is the chart for the 2008 financial crisis here. And let's see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. It looks like I might have. Yeah, there we go. So this is the chart from the 2008 financial crisis. And this blue line is the stock market. And we can see that it was going down. And we can see silver started going down. This is the black line. Silver started going down after the stock market started crashing. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Because gold and silver were bid here, and they didn't really start going down until the last couple of days. So in 2008, now obviously the first thing someone's going to say is, well, past performance isn't indicative of future results. I get that, right? We all understand that. But we're just showing what can happen, and we're showing what happened historically back in 2008. And the fact is, gold and silver and money. People need money. And if you got a long position and you got money on the table that you can take off and put somewhere else because you got to cover something, you got a margin call or who knows what, then money is going to be used in a time of crisis, right? So first and foremost, gold and silver are money. So stock market started crashing first. Silver started crashing second. What I want to point everybody's attention to, though, is silver bottomed out first. And if we pulled up the S&P, that was at that 666 print. I think it was March 6th or March 9th, 2009. I can't remember the exact date. But silver bottomed first and then started rising again. And then the stock market didn't bottom until later. So this is just something to keep in mind, right? When traders and investors need money, what do? Well, they're obviously going to cash out on something that they have a profit on, or at least are broken even on, as opposed to something that they've lost money on because, that's just how it's done, right? You're going to be selling the stuff that you're losing money on in the stock market when it's going down. But if you need to raise money, then you're going to sell stuff that you've made profit on, which is silver, right? And gold. Performing very well here. A couple things to keep in mind, though. Because looking at the chart right now, let me pull up this chart here. Okay, looking at the chart right now, I'm seeing silver is at $16.71. And I was like, hey, that's a great price. How low is it going to go? Is it going to go down to $15? I don't know. I don't think it's going to go down to $15. It could go down to $15. I wasn't really expecting going down to $16. But then again, stock markets are crashing. It's kind of obvious now that the stock markets are crashing. So here's the point that I want everybody to take away from this, right? And let's not forget there is active price suppression, right? Harvey Organ reported on all-time record high open interest in silver, I think on the 25th, so that would have been 3 days ago. Obviously, that number's coming way down right now because the silver, is going down in price. But there still is the active price suppression. But just in general, everything's going down. The markets are crashing. Here's the point that I want to bring up to everybody. Premium creep. Haven't talked about premium creep in a while. But going back to that decline in 2008 going into 2009, premium shot up big time. And my point with premium creep is that when we look at the price, people are saying, hey, silver is $16.70 right now. If it goes down to $15.70, I can save $1. Maybe, maybe not, because the lower the price goes, the more people are going to be buying. The more people that are going to be buying, that has an upward price pressure on premiums, right? Because remember, there's two prices when it comes to gold and silver in hand. There's the price of the metal itself, and then there's the premium on top of it, right? So the price of the metal could be going down, which it is right now. But with premium creep, the price you actually pay to get that coin in your hand could actually be going up because premiums are going up faster than prices are coming down. Let me give a very specific example of what I mean by that. And I'm going to pull this up. And, I haven't talked to any of the guys at SD Bullion. They didn't tell me to do any of this. None of this. I'm just showing a couple examples. And I pulled up what their current price for 90% silver is. And on, whoops, I got the wrong page here. There we go. And on 90% silver. Right now, I'm looking, they've got 25 cents over spot for a $10 face roll. Well, it would be 2 rolls if it's dimes. They don't specify what you get. Obviously, it's just whatever they have on hand. But look at this right now. You can get 90% constitutional junk silver. 90% silver for 25 cents over spot. Here's what I mean by premium creep. That's a heck of a deal right now. That is a crazy deal. And that's not even on like their docs deals. That's just a stupidly low price, in my opinion. Here's why I bring in premium creep, because, let's think back to the end of 2015 when silver was bottoming. When silver was bottoming in 2015, the U.S. Mint kind of ran out of silver eagles, and they put eagles on allocation, which is another way of saying rationing, right? And premiums started going up through the roof. So today, right now, I'm looking live on SD Bullion's website, and they've got premiums for 25 cents over spot for a $10 face value roll of 90% silver. But look at this. Here's where I talk about premium creep. This is an article that I wrote August 17th, 2018. And the point that I want to make out is there's a website called archive.org, and it's basically like an archive of the internet. They take snapshots of the internet in certain points in time. So here is a snapshot from September 5th, 2015. So if you wanted to buy a $250 face value bag of constitutional silver, you were paying over $6 premium for that $250 bag. Okay, that's kind of not apples to apples. I probably should have pulled up a $250 face bag. So let me pull that up and just see what the premium is on that right now. So let's see here. Actually, and I don't even think SD Bullion sells a. I don't think that they sell a $250 face bag. I could be wrong about that, but let's see here. My point is they got 100, a 500, and yeah, they don't sell a 250. So let's just look at what a $100 face bag would be right now. Premium 25 cents. So it looks like they got that 25 cents for just, dealer's choice, obviously, because you're not saying, hey, give me some Walkers or give me some Franklins, right? You're not being able to say what you want. But, right now, that's across the board. And if we go back to September 5th snapshot 2015, if you wanted to get 90% constitutional silver, we had premium creep kicking in, and premium shot up over $6. Here's the long and drawn out point with that. If you're waiting for $15.70 to pull the trigger on some 90% constitutional silver, well, if the premium goes up by $2, then you're kind of actually paying more than you would have. That's the only point that I wanted to make with that, because, yes, all of the markets are crashing right now, and this is, this is just the reality of it. As I said on Monday, let me pull up the charts here again. As I said on Monday, this is just the fundamentals are exerting themselves, and the fundamentals are coming back into the markets, and there is panic in the markets, and there's no doubt. So here is the stock market right here. Here's the Dow. We're down right now 892 points. Gold, silver. The dollar's kind of hanging in there, 98.34. Yield on a treasury on the 10-year note, again, is plunging. We might hit another new record low in yield. Let's pull that up real quick and see where we're at. So, yes, we are, in fact, at a record low yield ever, all-time record low on the 10-year. So the flight to safety is, in fact, on. It looks like we're at 1.15 approximately yield on the 10-year note. So, we just got to get through this. Hey, if you're a stacker, then this is a stacker-friendly way of getting your weight up, as my co-host Mike would say, because, hey, things are looking good in my opinion. So that's point number one. Just give a little market update, and then know that, yes, this is a pullback. This is a dip. People are raising money from wherever they have profits to be had. A lot of profits are to be had in gold and silver, so they're cashing out and they're covering losses elsewhere and whatnot. So that's just point number one that I wanted to make about the markets, and let me go ahead and check in here with the chat and see if anybody had a specific question in the chat first. Remember, you can put the ampersand at Silver Doctors and it'll stand out in orange so I can see that. So I see that it looks like there's one question here in the chat. Trump's still saying that this is the greatest economy ever. Yeah, I'm sure he is. He probably is. Low blood pressure made that. So if anybody has got a specific question, just put at Silver Doctors if you want to address it to us, or if people are just chatting amongst themselves. Chris, I appreciate that. Hit the thumbs up button. Also hit the thumbs up button if you think that just doing shows solo is good, because, I don't really do solo shows, but I think that the information I want to share today is too important to not do a show. We said we stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so we're going to be doing it. So comments below about whether you like this format or not are greatly appreciated. So we need to get into a few things here, and we need to get into the CDC's latest campaign. And the CDC's latest campaign is share facts, not fear. So first of all, let's get an update. Let's get an update on the current count here. So this is, the St. John's tracker, 83,862 cases. So the cases in the U.S. are still sitting at 60, and let's make sure that the CDC has not updated their website just yet with new numbers of cases. Oops, something looks like it's down on their website. Not sure what exactly that is, but the cases in the U.S. is not uploading. Anyway, let's go back to this then, since it's not going to upload. It's not going to upload. Well, we can just go to their main one, and we can find it this way. Okay, so cases in the United States, and saying what's going on, CC. People would like to have information. And the CDC would like you to have the facts and not the fear. So let's talk about these, because I have a problem with every single one of them. Okay, a couple questions first. Medical grade hand sanitizer selling out. Yes, it is. We're going to get into that. I want to talk about the panic buying. Also, toilet paper, just panic buying all around now. Price drop from margin calls. I didn't look at the margin requirements. CME Group is notorious for hiking margin requirements, meaning you got to pony up. Also for margin calls, so if you're losing on a position and you have leverage on that, meaning you borrowed to put on that position and all of a sudden it's losing, your brokerage firm is going to give you a call and say, hey, we need you to pony up or else we're going to force sell this. So you can't maintain that position unless you put some more money into it. So that's what a margin call is. So a lot of this can in fact be going on. So what are the facts, Rob B is saying? Who is providing information? Shy now, do we trust these government entities? I don't think we trust the government, and I'm going to get into that too. So here's the facts. This is from the CDC. So these facts are from the CDC. So fact number one. So I have a problem with every single one of these. Fact number one, diseases can make anyone sick regardless of their race and ethnicity. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. That's right. Mike's had his suspicions more than I have. I haven't quite had my suspicions because of the Diamond Princess and because of Italy and Europe and everything else now. But there's something very wrong with what the CDC is saying here. People of Asian descent, including Chinese Americans, are not more likely to get COVID-19 than any other American. Help stop the fear by letting the people know that people of Asian descent being of Asian descent does not increase the chance of getting or spreading COVID-19. Okay, that's fine. That's a fact. I'll accept that. Here's the problem that I have with that whatever. They're talking about discrimination, basically, or racism, or whatever, however you want to frame that, on the one hand. But on the other hand, what they're doing in practice is actually discriminating, and this is something that we brought up yesterday during our live stream. And this is where I have a problem with that, because, they're saying the virus doesn't discriminate against ethnicity, in fact number one. But as a matter of policy, the CDC is saying that, the virus doesn't discriminate based on ethnicity, but it does discriminate based on legal migratory status in the United States. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that, the Trump administration, working with the CDC and the WHO, right, and the CDC's guidelines, what they're doing is they're screening at the airports. They're screening at the airports only, and they're not screening just anybody from China. They're screening only certain people from China, and they're basically excluding a whole lot of people. So let me talk about this a little bit further. So CDC is basing everything off of the proclamation from the president. So this was on the 30th. This is on the 31st of January. So this is when President Trump basically came out and said, we are banning people from China. But what that meant is we are banning basically foreign nationals from China. However, there are a whole lot of exceptions to the rule. If you are from China and you're an American, you just get that light screening at the airport. If you are a lawful permanent resident from China, you just get that light screening from the airport. There are a ton of people who are excluded from coming in the country, and that's basically, or who are excluded from being banned from coming in. So basically my point is this, right? Anybody coming from China could have the virus. The virus does not discriminate against a person who is an American citizen, an illegal immigrant, or a lawful permanent resident, or whatever, right? But as a matter of policy, we're saying, well, we're not going to let people in from China who are Chinese foreign nationals, but, we're going to let everybody else in. Well, how does a virus know what your legal migratory status is? That's the point there, and that's the problem that I have with fact number one by the CDC. And this just goes on to list a whole host of people who are allowed to come in from China, right? So any person who's a lawful permanent resident who has a green card is allowed in from China. Any alien who is the spouse of a citizen or a permanent resident. So it doesn't even matter what their legal status is according to the White House's proclamation, right? So there's a whole host of people who are still coming in from China who can be carriers of the virus. That's the point. That's the problem that I have with fact number one from the CDC. The CDC is saying that it doesn't discriminate against ethnicity. I would agree with that, but the CDC, as a matter of practice, is discriminating against migratory status, which, if you're talking about containing the spread, stopping the spread, being aggressive, that word we've heard a million times in the past week, they're not being aggressive with the measures that they're taking. So that's point number one. Let's look at the fact number two and see. Okay. This one is just flat out wrong. This one is just bad public policy. This, to me, in my opinion, is not a fact. Fact number two that the CDC is telling us, the risk of getting COVID is in the U.S. is currently low. Actually, fact 3 is one. I was wrong. Fact 2, the problem I have with this is that's relative, right? Let's go back to this tracker map. So they're saying the risk of getting COVID-19 in the U.S. is currently low. If you're in the United States, sure, it is low, generally speaking, for the population at large. But that is totally and completely relative to where you are in the United States. So a blanket statement like that, I mean, they need to qualify that statement. Here's that St. John's tracker, and let's zoom in on the United States. And, I would say that if a person lives in California, well, their risk is not as low as somebody, their risk is not as low as somebody who lives in other areas of the country where there are no confirmed cases, right? So my arguing with this would be that it's relative. A person who lives in California, especially in any of these cities where there's active confirmed cases, they have a little bit more risk. So yes, take that with a grain of salt. It depends where you live. This is why I said that people are going to start needing to follow news down to a local level. So you get the overall broad picture and then start looking locally to see what's happening in your local area. Normal Norm, I appreciate that. I try and be logical. Thank you. I'm gonna check in with the chat here, but I want to get through this CDC facts thing first because it's important. 3 is the one that I have a huge problem with. This is the one that I think is not a fact. This is in my opinion, of course, but this is very, very wrong of the CDC to say this as a fact. Here's what the CDC says. The CDC says someone who has completed quarantine or has been released from isolation does not pose a risk of infection. Does not pose a risk. Does not. That is certainty. They do not pose a risk. Here's why I have a problem with that. Let's talk about how the risk spreads. And let's go to the CDC's own website on this. So here's transmission. Here's the CDC's website, how COVID-19 spreads. Look at these keywords here. So, current understanding is largely based on what we know about other coronaviruses. Okay. The virus is thought to be spread. So there's kind of a little bit of doubt there, right? We think it spreads this way. Okay. Spread from contact with infected surfaces or objects. It may be possible. So, it may be possible to spread this way, but they don't really know. Can someone spread the virus without being sick? People are thought to be most contagious. So, we don't really know. Some spread might be possible before people show symptoms, right? So, what's the point here? The point here is there is a ton of uncertainty on the CDC's own website about how COVID-19 spreads. But what is fact number 3? If a person has completed quarantine, that person does not pose a risk. How do they know that? That is not a fact. That is a bold-faced lie. We'll get into that a little bit later. That's my opinion, of course. Number 4, how can you stop COVID-19 by knowing the signs or symptoms? Okay, so the problem that I have with this is that this is kind of like slightly downplaying it, right? So look at the subliminal messaging, and we're going to talk about this too with the propaganda and things because this is important. So what I don't like about fact number 4, and they only have 5 facts here, but what I don't like about fact number 4 is seek medical advice if you have traveled to China in the past 14 days. So there's planting that seed. Oh, I haven't even been to China ever, so I got nothing to worry about, right? So, CDC, shame on you for downplaying this. That's not the right thing to do in the interest of public health, in my opinion. Number 5, the only thing that I have about this are, what can you do? There are simple things you can do to help keep you and others healthy. Okay, that is in fact a fact. That's basically like the only real fact that the CDC is saying. But what I don't like about this is there's no mention about a mask, right? There's no mention about any of that, right? So, I kind of have a bad feeling about that because I think that the mask is in fact important. And it's going to be more important as we move through this. So, those are a couple of the topics that I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up the CDC's facts, not fear, to show that I do not think that the CDC is doing a good job with this at all. One of their facts is a bold-faced lie, and the other facts are arguably tiny bit helpful, but could have a detrimental effect, especially when you're talking about downplaying it. And somebody who might have been in close contact with the person might, think, well, I haven't been into China, so I got nothing to worry about, not knowing that they were in contact with, in close contact with a confirmed case. So that's point number 2. So let me check in here with the chat and see if we got a little bit of a couple questions directed towards us. So we did the price. What are the facts? Okay, crude oil is falling so fast. Do you think we will go to war with Iran to prop up the markets? Crude oil is down 6% today. So, Penny Pension Prepper. Good question. Where is... let me pull up my charts here. So here's crude oil. $44. I'm looking at $44.25 right now. Here are my thoughts on crude oil. And war with Iran. I don't think that, we necessarily even have to go to war with Iran anymore. I don't even think that necessarily a shot has to be fired against Iran, because coronavirus is ravaging through the country right now. Apparently one of the vice presidents, I don't know how many vice presidents they have, but I guess there's more than one, but one of the vice presidents is infected. I guess the call from yesterday, one of the people that has contact with the Vatican, and I don't know what capacity, from Iran, died. Then you've got the Minister of Health, who is in confirmed case and infected with this. You have people dying in Iran. So, do we need to have war with Iran? Well, we might not have to have war with Iran because, a lot of people are going to be dying off in Iran due to the years of sanctions, due to the worldwide shortage of medical supplies, and due to the fact that Iran has already been crippled anyway. So regime change could be coming without going to World War III. Now, here are my thoughts about oil and just the futures markets in general. We could be seeing serious disconnects with the futures markets and with actual prices on the ground. Here's what I mean by that. What I mean by that is, right now I'm looking at a price of $44.38 last price crude oil. It's possible that you could be paying more for gasoline or diesel at the pump. Copper, right? Here's another one. Let's look at copper for a second. Let me pull up a couple of these charts here. So here is copper. Right there, so copper's going down. Looks like 261 here on the 21st. Looks like we're at 250 right now. Here's a little bit of closer look at crude oil's fall. So there we can see we were, above 53 here. We were above $50 here back on the 21st. Now we're all the way down at $44 here. My point with that is, I think that with this supply strain, this supply chain disruption, this supply chain logistics problem that we now have worldwide, if it is more difficult to get commodities around the world because of shipping and logistics problems, then in my opinion, it's quite possible that we now see this dichotomy of two different futures market, of two different prices, right? We see a paper price on a futures market, but regionally or locally, depending on where you are, if commodities and supplies and things like that aren't able to come in because of logistics, because of the supply chain disruptions, then prices could actually be going up. So that's why I say that there could be a disconnect from the futures market paper price and the actual real price for physical or just for anything in hand, if that matter. So let's be looking out for that. I think that's something that will be interesting to be looking for. And that's something that I am, in fact, looking for. So we'll need to be following that. See if there's so that's a good question. And I hope that I answered that at all. Anyway, that's good. So if you have any more questions that you want to address to me, I see some good chit chat going on back and forth. Just highlight at Silver Doctors and it'll stand out like that. So let's talk about something that is starting to turn into a very scary scenario. I don't know who has been watching like those videos from a few weeks ago, but it would show like all the doctors in China, and they were all rallied around like a Chinese flag or something like that, and it would say, we pledge that we will fight this coronavirus to the death. We will not abandon our posts. We're going to be here until the bitter end in the name of public health. Yeah. We're taking it for the team. Communist China, hoorah. I don't know if people remember that, but, in the United States, it's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. If you recall that on, was it Monday? I think it was Monday. On Monday's show, we had a caller call in from, I think he was in Florida, and he was he called in from Florida, and if I remember right, he's an emergency room nurse. And he took in, and I have no reason to believe that he's not, right? And with the follow-up questions that we were asking him, I mean, it seems obvious. He could either walk the walk. He was, if he doesn't walk the walk, he was at least talking the talk, right? So we have to take it with a grain of salt. But I mean, I do believe the caller. But he called in, and he was an emergency room nurse, and he said that informally discussing about it, people are just going to, walk away. It's not worth it. It's not worth risking it to my family. I didn't sign up for this. It's not worth putting myself at risk. It's not worth putting my family at risk, especially when the government and the CDC is just botching this all around. Horrible response. Here's why I want to talk about we could, in fact, be facing a very, 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 very severe crisis. Charles Hugh Smith put up an awesome article. Charles Hugh Smith is a regular guest of ours on Silver Doctors. He's a great person. He's another person to follow about this. Chris Martenson, he's another person to follow this. There's a few people that are on top of this because in one way or another, they have intimate knowledge of China, right? Charles Hugh Smith's been in China many times. Chris Martenson, he's either a pathologist or an epidemiologist. I can't remember. He's a dookie. We won't hold that against him, but he knows his stuff when it comes to pathogens. I'm just some guy who worked at the CDC and a national HIV and STD call center, so I know how to talk about this stuff, right? And I can also relate it to the markets and gold and silver and the military and running a homeless shelter and a soup kitchen and supplies and prepping and all that good stuff. So that's my kind of unique angle. I don't know if I'm any good at it, hopefully. But let's look at Charles Hugh Smith's article from this morning because this is kind of important. And let me just focus in on it. Here it is. Okay. Whoops. I don't even have that page up yet. Here we go. Okay. Actually, this is from yesterday. So the title of his article, and let me zoom this in here a little bit larger. Whoops. Let's see here. Okay. Could the COVID-19 pandemic collapse the U.S. healthcare system? Very good question, Charles. Let's look at this for 1 second. Here's the takeaway. So we had a caller call in and say, they're ready to just abandon their post and walk away. I actually don't blame them because, yes, you want to do no harm. Yes, you want to treat patients. Yes, you took an oath and all of this. But if you're being placed in harm's way and if you don't have the correct tools and equipment to do your job, I mean, if you're a dead healthcare worker, then you can't help anybody, can you? But I just want to talk about this. He was talking about highlighting something that a long-time general practitioner had said about this. And I just want to read this because this really drills home the point that I was making that, we can see attrition in a healthcare setting. So it says, and I'm just going to read a little bit of this. The risk of a wholesale healthcare system failure from stress, even a fraction of what it is experienced in China, is deeply, deeply underappreciated. The transition of medicine from calling it a career is nearly complete. So basically what they're talking about here, let me just give the synopsis first. The U.S. healthcare's obsession with maximizing profits by any means available has transformed healthcare from a calling to just another burnout job. Now, I don't work in healthcare, so I don't know. But I mean, it does make sense to me. And this is from a longtime general practitioner. And listen to this. Here's one of the key takeaways. If coronavirus hit my community 20 years ago, at a time where all the administrators and most of the staff of our 200-bed hospital lived in town, my partners would have sucked it up and did our best, even at risk with our own life. I'm not boasting or saying we were heroes. It's just that was the way we were trained. White coats were only for the broadest shoulders, and you were taught that the risks of taking care of sick people was part of the deal. Our patients were our neighbors, and they counted on us. Today, though the same organization owns the hospital, none of the management lives in town. Like most care hospital systems, the owners are more and more interested in data collection and foot traffic than healthcare, and it shows. Inpatient doctors are all hospitalists who live far out of town. All the other docs in town now work for the same organization, but they haven't been welcome in the hospital for years. A few of the nursing staff live nearby. If a real pandemic hits, that hospital will and truly fail. There's no other word for it. Doctors and nurses will not show up. It's not their friends or family or a kid's teacher or pastor at risk. While we wouldn't have liked it, we wouldn't have risked our health for our community. So here, bottom line is saying this is more anecdotal evidence saying healthcare workers are just not going to go to work when this hits their area and if it becomes bad. So remember, the United States is going to take it exceptionally bad in the United States. Why? Because, one, generally speaking, the average health of the average American, I would argue, is much worse than the average health of like your average Japanese person, right? Two, healthcare workers are going to be getting sick, right? There's no way around that. Some of them will be sick, so that's lost work. And then number three, healthcare workers are going to be quitting and saying, you know what, I'm done with this. It's too much of a risk. So yeah, it's going to get bad here. So overall point is we keep saying anecdotal evidence all around that healthcare workers are not going to show up for work. Low blood pressure says, Paul, the healthcare workers dealing with this virus are wearing Depends to avoid the hour it takes to decontaminate themselves. That sounds like a joke or a sick joke, but I do not doubt that one bit. But if we think about it, right, the CDC is recommending these isolation rooms, and they're recommending negative, vacuum pressure in it, air systems. We do not have that set up in the vast majority of the places. Our healthcare system and our hospitals are just going to get overwhelmed and overrun. Absolutely. So, it's going to be a mess one way or another. There's no way around it. So, excuse me while I take a little sip of water here, because it's kind of weird just saying so much by myself. Let me see if there is a couple more questions here in the chat. The media is too busy televising Michael Jordan. I don't know. I guess I saw something about that on CNN. How many weeks and months of food do you recommend having on hand for a family? The more the better, I like what the Mormons used to say. I don't know if they say this again. I don't know if we have any Mormons that are watching because I'm not too familiar with it, but generally speaking, the Mormons were peppers, and they used to say 7 years. 7 years. And I think that comes down with the whole, 7 years of feast or famine, or I can't remember how it was, in the Bible, right? But for some reason, 7 years. As far as a recommendation, I would say, and obviously a person can't do this, right? Any days greater than 0 is better than 0 days worth of food on hand, right? Whatever you're comfortable with. Here's something to think about, right, though. If there's a major disruption, having, a couple months is the best. Having 3 months is even better. In my opinion, what would be the most ideal, and not everybody can afford this, and I actually don't even have this myself, right? I would consider myself a prepper, but I do not have this, right? So I'm not practicing what I preach. I'm just saying this is what I would recommend. And obviously I would practice it, if I had a little bit more money, a little bit deeper pockets, I would definitely have this. But I would say 2 years, right? If you can afford it, if you're willing and able and all your other bases are covered, 2 years of food. Why? Because of harvest seasons, right? We don't know what's going to be happening with the harvests. So, people would like to have a couple year buffer there, for the growing seasons. To get through this pandemic, definitely 2 weeks. I don't think that that's enough, right? Because 2 weeks is a quarantine right now. Right, with what we know right now. What if this thing is chronic? What if it spreads in different ways that we don't know about? So, to get through this pandemic, I would say bare minimum would be at least 3 months. I would say minimum at least 3 months. So, good question there, Glenn. I hope I answered that. It's just kind of weird talking to myself. Like I say, probably getting annoyed with me saying that. But anyway, please hit that thumbs up button. Please comment below so I can go back later after and look at comments, because I want to know if you like this format, just me coming on and talking, right? Because I don't know if this is good or not, but to me, right, here's my point. I feel that I had to come on today and talk because there's a lot of important information and people need to figure this stuff out. But I want to address that Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan thing one time because I actually didn't do this today. I did not do this today. There is so much going on that I did not start my day with my traditional Bloomberg, CNN, Fox News, Reuters, right? Because that's the very first thing I do. What are the propagandists propagandizing? So let's actually take a look at that together because this is going to be news for me too. So let's see here. If I can find my cursor, there it is. Okay, here we go. So here is CNN. What's CNN talking about? So hey, well, they got it up front and center, it looks like here. 5 from the Diamond Princess crews have died. Pence is leading the coronavirus response, but is still heading to Florida to fundraise. So they're on their Trump bashing. So they're covering it, but they're putting in their Trump bashing. So it looks like CNN is to their own selves. We got an art teacher down here. She was suspended for something. So yeah, I guess CNN's kind of reporting on the news. Let's look at what Fox is talking about here. Okay. So it looks like the mainstream is finally waking up to the panic here. Stocks in shock. Yes, they are in shock. Although actually I'm looking now. Look, we got a little recovery going on here. Here's the stock market right here. So it looks like they're trying to ramp it up into the green. Although we're only down 450 points still. So even with this ramp. So, I'd be looking for this to roll over. We'll see. Let's finish our scan. Let me get back to that web page. Let's finish our scan one more time just to see what the mainstream is talking about here. Where am I at? Here we go. So Bloomberg, what's on Bloomberg mind? It's got to be stock market. U.S. stocks plunge for the 7th straight day. Yes, they are indeed plunging. And let's look at that plunge on a daily chart with the stock market. There's that plunge right there. There's that plunge. I don't think we're going to have a V-shaped recovery from this. I really do not. And let's just finish our last scan with Reuters, and we'll see what they're saying. So, the World Health Organization warns of coronavirus spreading worldwide as 5 countries report their first cases. We're going to talk about that. That is also on the list. Viva Mexico. So we're going to talk about that. So, let's get right back to the rest of the topics. So that was that third topic. Healthcare workers are just, in the United States, healthcare workers are going to have to think about this long and hard. And they will be thinking about this long and hard. And some of them will actually act on this. And they will say, you know what, I'm not going to put myself or my family at risk for this. There's too much unknown. I don't have the proper tools. So, I'm not taking calls. Anybody right now, don't call in. Actually, that's how I'm going to do it today. I'm just going to keep on talking, and I'm going to keep on rambling here for a minute. I might take some calls towards the end, but I want to get through all these points first. So if you do have questions, I will, in fact, answer the questions addressed to @SilverDoctors. Chris, I don't know about if it's time to lock yourself up in a bunker or not. Everybody's got to make a decision on their own. So I don't think it's quite that time. I think there's still time to prepare, but it also depends on where you are. But it's nice that you have a bunker. That's nice. Now we know why all these global elitists have been buying bunkers, right? Maybe it wasn't for nuclear fallout anyway. It was for, waiting out this pandemic. And I don't know why I still got Reuters up. But let's talk about the next subject right here, which is going to be, actually, you know what, in the chat, let me know what you want to hear next. If you want to talk about, I want to talk about either the U.S. military in Korea, I want to talk about Mexico, or I want to talk about the conferences. So the very first thing is the next topic that we will go off of. And I also want to talk about the travel warnings too, because there's a little bit of interesting things going on between the CDC and the State Department, because they have a little bit different metrics, and we need to look into the politics of that. So what everybody wants me to hit on next, let me know what that next topic you want me to touch on in the chat. Either Mexico, the U.S. military in Korea, the conferences. Okay, Mexico. There we go. Low blood pressure. Thank you. So here we go. Let's pull this up. This is the Department of the Salud. This is the health ministry in Mexico. It is now official. So the Mexican Health Department, the health ministry, confirms a case of coronavirus. The patient is low risk and is isolated for observations. There are many things we need to talk about here, because this is going to become very, 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 very important. And this is going to become very, very, very important for all of Mexico. This is going to become very, very important for all of the United States. If you have a stake in the United States, if you have a stake in the United States, or if you have a stake in Mexico, this is going to be important, and this will, in fact, affect you, I think. So here we go. Let's talk about this. We've got the first case. Let's talk about something very interesting about this first case. Here is the picture. Here is the Ministry of Health, and here they are giving this press conference. This case did not come from China. No, sir. This case did not come from China. Looky there. Looky there. First case comes from a person from Italy. That's right. That's right. The first case, confirmed case, south of the border, comes from Italy. They were in the city of Mexico, Ciudad Mex. That's Ciudad Mexico. So this is Mexico City, the federal district, DF, Distrito Federal. So twice, right? So they have confirmed this with 2 positive tests. That's how they have been doing it. At first they said, we think we have a case. He tested positive once. Let's wait on that second test result. Second test result came back positive. We have a confirmed case in Mexico. The interesting thing is, remember, there are 0 travel restrictions in place to and from China, but this person wasn't even from China. This person came in through Italy, and there's the Mexican Ministry of Health talking about that. So there's something I want to bring up about that. Okay, so here's what they're talking about with this announcement. And let me just bring back up the tweet in general. The patient is located here. Let me translate that so you can see. Instituto Nacional de Enfermedades Respiratorias. So what this is the National Institute of Respiratory Infections. That's where this person is located. Remember, the CDC says that the CDC says that coronavirus patients need to be isolated. We need to have biohazard, hazmat, we need to have isolation chambers set up in the United States with negative air pressure and all this good stuff, right? I wasn't CBRN, right? When I was in the Army, I wasn't doing, bioweapons, radioactive weapons and all that stuff. So I'm not exactly sure all the different hazmat levels, especially when it's talking about non-military, right? But apparently the CDC says you got to treat these people like this, and there's just not enough space to go around, period. But here's what they're doing in Mexico. So think about this, right? So they're at this sanitarium, right? A sanitarium that was initially built for tuberculosis. So let's talk about that. Here's a nice little article from the Secretary of Health in Mexico. Let me actually translate this here. Oh, it is translated. Okay, good. This is just talking about this, where this coronavirus patient is being held in Mexico. So just to see the kind of facilities that these people are being held in. This is a facility that was built in the 1930s, completed in 1935. And this is what they call a sanitarium. And it's basically where they don't really use this term as much anymore. But it's basically where people would go, sanitarium, sanar, right, to get healthy, salud. These are all derivatives of that word, right? People don't know this, but Half Dollar thinks he's like a wannabe linguist because he got a degree from the University of North Carolina. And anyway, that's a whole different thing. So here we go. They built this building in the 1930s, right, as a way where tuberculosis patients would go to get better. Sanitarium, a sanatorium. It's not really like what the CDC would recommend, but here's the point that I want to make. I want to show you pictures of the inside of this, but this place is kind of even better than where the United States was planning on dumping the people at the Fairview Development Center in California, right? So I did a little image search of this. So let's look at what this looks like here. Where's my image search? Let's look at what this looks like. Here it is. So here is this sanitarium, right? So it's just a building here. Hold on. I wanted to give the inside of it right here. So here's what it looks like, right? So this is this sanitarium where this coronavirus patient is being held in Mexico. But I want to show the inside of it because it just shows, and I know there's a picture here that shows the inside because it is not the setup where you would think. Here we go. Here's the picture. So this is the sanitarium. So this is where the person is being held in Mexico. And this is the kind of setup that they have, right? So, this is not an isolation containment. This is not, a negative. This is not that kind of a setup, right? This is not that kind of a setup. So it's basically like a hospital set up to deal with respiratory infections that was built in the 1930s, right? So here's another picture of it right here. So that's saying what is the National Institutes of Respiratory Diseases. So this is the best that they got, right? So this is where people go. They're getting them away from the general public. It's a hospital specifically designed for this, but it's not set up according to the very stringent hazmat levels that the CDC is recommending, and that we know this virus can spread like wildfire. Now, why am I going all around this so much? And why am I saying this is going to matter for everybody in the United States and everybody in Mexico, and people need to pay attention to this? Here's why. Because of cultural differences, right? That is why. Because of cultural differences. Because, and let me just bring back up some charts while I'm talking here. There we go. Because of cultural differences, right? We need to talk about the difference in culture. In the United States, you know, it's not uncommon for people to go to the grocery store a couple times a week. It's not uncommon for people to go to the grocery store just once a week. It's not uncommon for people in the United States to go to the grocery store once every 2 weeks. It's not uncommon for people in the United States to go to the grocery store once a month. Let's talk about Mexico, and let's talk about what's common in Mexico. In Mexico, it is common to go to get vegetables in the morning, to go to the vegetable stand. In Mexico, it's common to go see the meat market, the meat guy, after picking up those vegetables, right? And this could be in a market, or it could be little stores that are kind of like out in the street, or little stands out in the street. So you go to the vegetable seller and you buy some vegetables for the day. Then you go to the meat seller and you buy, you know, a chicken breast, and they'll slice it up. I mean, man, they can slice those things by hand, paper thin. Oh, man, get some milanesa, or you bread it and fry it, and that's some delicious eating right there. Let me tell you, you want to try some milanesa in Mexico. But they go to the meat market, right, and get some meat. Then what do they do after that? Then they go home, and then, you know, they start preparing a meal, right? And then when they're preparing a meal, what do? Well, got to have fresh, hot tortillas in Mexico. That's what you eat with your food. So you go down to the tortilleria every single day, and you pick up those tortillas and take it back to the house, right? What am I saying here? I'm saying there is tons of close contact throughout the day in Mexico. Tons of close contact. Where a person in the United States might go to the grocery store once a week, and that's it. In Mexico, if you go to the tortilleria once a day, if you get vegetables or produce once a day, if you go to the meat man once a day, and then in the evening you go out to get some Mexican sweetbread, because everybody knows that's the bomb about 8 or 10 o'clock p.m. in the evening, then that's 4 times a day you potentially have gone out. That's 28 times a week you're going out in public in close contact with this. Well, $50, just stock up, right? They just stock up and have 3 months supply of food down there in Mexico. I mean, it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, you know, you're not like, you don't have the coffers stuffed in Mexico, right? So that's point number one about the cultural differences. So the reason why I've been so concerned about Mexico this whole time, it's not because $50's wife was Mexican. I mean, she's American now, but it's not because $50 studied in Mexico and lived there for 2 years. No, it's because it's not that I lived on the border for 9 years. It's because Mexico matters, and Mexico and the United States are joined at the hip, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. That's beside the point. And there is a lot of close contact. One more point about the cultural differences in Mexico is greeting people, right? This was always like so weird for me, right? Because, you know, in America, right? I mean, a lot of guys don't even hug each other, right? We just shake hands. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, good. You haven't seen in a while. Yeah, good to see you. But in Mexico, you know, you meet someone, you haven't seen them, and not even if you haven't seen them, right? Guys and girls, they meet each other with a kiss on the cheek. You know, how you doing? Yeah, good to see you. So there's close contact there just with the daily interactions in and out and about. So that's point number 2. Point number 1 is food is kind of hand to mouth in that sense. Point number 1 is lots of close contact throughout the day just to eat. Point number 2 is social norms in Mexico, kissing on the cheek and things like that. Then there's point number 3, public transportation, right? Public transportation. Most people in Mexico don't have a car, right? I don't know the exact statistics, but I would say that your average Mexican is not driving a car to work. Your average Mexican is taking a bus, they're taking a taxi, they're walking, or they're taking a subway. So, you know, there is a ton of public transportation in Mexico. So what does a ton of public transportation mean? A ton of close contact. So, you know, those are just some things why I say we need to be watching Mexico, because Mexico matters. It's a very different culture south of the border, and the cultural norms and just the customs and the practices down there, to me, say that it's going to get really, 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 really bad in Mexico. which obviously has ramifications for the United States. You know, are we going to close the southern border with Mexico? I do think that President Trump is going to start talking about that. Watch for that to happen. And then what do we do, right? I mean, my goodness. Remember last year we put up on Silver Doctors that during this whole trade war thing, the United States was doing more trade between Mexico, right? And as a dollar amount of trade, the United States did more of a dollar amount of trade with Mexico for the first time ever than it had done with China. And I can't remember if that was 2018 or 2000. Well, it would have been 2018, I think, because that was like the main year of the trade war. So yeah, you close that southern border, cause you know, I lived in El Paso, right? So I know what that looks like, right? You got trucks going in and out of that border all day long. You got trucks going in and out of that border, hauling stuff back and forth. And then you also got people going across that border all day long, right? You got people in El Paso, right? You got kids that are American citizens. And, you know, the parents can't come in, right? And they're in Juarez, right? And they won't be able to get a green card or permanent residency for whatever reason, and their kids are minors, so the kids can't petition them, right? So the kids go every single day to the U.S. schools because they're American citizens, right? So there's this cross-border every day. Then there's the workers, right? The workers. I mean, I saw this at the place I did an internship with, right? One time where, you know, labor's cheaper from Mexico. So what do? Oh, we can't find employees here in the United States, so we're just going to have to give these special visas for the Mexicans to come in every day and work. So then you got all the workers going over daily. So you got students going over daily, you got workers going over daily, and you got trucks going over daily. And that's just in addition to any other regular traffic. So, you know, the global supply chain disruption is very, very real. Now start to look for a problem with cross-border trade. So, and I'm talking about land trade, and I'm talking about specifically the southern border with Mexico. So that's the points that I wanted to bring up about Mexico there. I think those are some good points. I cannot believe I have been talking to myself for an hour. If everybody is appreciating this, please give me a thumbs up, because I don't know if this is a good situation. I don't know if this is a good thing to be doing or is not a good thing to be doing. I really do appreciate the support. I'm going to keep going here because there's a couple things that we need to talk about, because there are a couple things that are very important that I do think that people need to understand. And I will also address a couple of the questions in the chat. I'm not going to take phone calls today. I just decided that I'm going too long and I still want to hit on these points. So if you do have questions today, I will in fact address them. I'll address them in the chat. Let me see if there's any follow-up questions about Mexico while I'm at it. Let me scroll here. I see a couple. Please touch air travel restrictions between the U.S. and the EU. There's none. There's no air travel restrictions. But I will touch on that specifically, and I'm going to search that for you, Room Medic. A secondary duty I had in the military was part of the nuclear response team, and the virus, if you start thinking of as fallout, it will give you a good idea of what we are in. Okay, Silver Doctors, you are doing a great job. Bobby Jones, I appreciate that. You know, I don't know why, right? But I feel that, you know, we haven't been talking about gold and silver a lot, right? I mean, come on, it's you know, we need to like survive through this first, right? Everybody needs to get through this so we can enjoy our gold and silver and help rebuild in the future, right? So I feel that I must go on. The show must go on even though my co-host is not here. So I do appreciate that, Bobby Jones. There's another comment here. Ben A says, Corona is the pin popping in this overvalued stock market. It indeed is the pin popping, Ben. You nailed the hammer on the nail with that one, or you popped that bubble with that pin. Good job, Ben A. Why is gold, silver, and the miners joining that? Everything's going down, right? If you need money, then the thing you're going to do first and foremost is you're going to get money where you made money. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to get money where you broken even. And the third thing you're going to do is you're going to get money where you've lost money. So that's why they're going down. So thank you for that question. My boss caught me watching Silver Doctors at work. Albert S., I appreciate that. Good going. That's awesome. I'm not saying watch Silver Doctors at work, but if you can, you know, watch Silver Doctors at work. Why not? Sounds good. But I'm glad you had to go. I hope you come back for the second part, because there are 3 different topics I want to hit on. And let's talk about travel. So that's one of them that I want to talk about. And then we're going to talk about the EU specifically. And actually, Rue, what was the name of that person in the chat? I'm going to give you 2 links, and this is going to be useful for everybody. And I can't find that in the chat, so excuse me. But Rue Medic, I think was the name. This is going to be very important, because this is a way that you can look at these travel things back and forth. Here we go. There are two different types of travel. There's three things, right? There's travel restrictions, right? Travel restrictions are like what the Trump administration has placed on Chinese foreign nationals, with exceptions, banned from coming into the United States. That's a restriction. That's like a proclamation. But, Trump's executive saying, hey, this is what we're doing with China. Then there's the State Department. The State Department generally issues travel advisories. That's who handles travel advisories to other nations, right? The State Department does that. But then there's the CDC. They have their own travel advisories, right? So I'm going to give two links right here. The first link that I'm going to give is the link for travel advisories for the State Department. And I hope this is not too many characters. There we go. Then the second link that I'm going to give here is for travel advisories for, and it's right, you can see it right here, from the CDC, right? So let me put this in there too. So Rue Medic, if that was your name, please excuse me if it wasn't. Travel restriction is only common sense. Yes. Good point there, Faith. Yeah, it is common sense, right? We have personally, right? What is Half Dollar doing? Personally, we have been slowly but surely closing off those travel plans that we've had, and we're getting more and more and more local as the time goes by and as this thing spreads out, right? So as this virus is spreading out and as it gets closer to you, common sense says that your travel restrictions need to be imposed on yourself. A lot more local, right? So you're not traveling to other nations, then you're not traveling across the country, then you're not traveling across the state, so it just gets down as it gets going out. So let's talk about these travel restrictions for a minute, and let's talk about how it pertains to Japan. So you can check those EU travel advisories on those two websites right there. I want to talk about how it pertains to Japan, though, because this is interesting. Because remember, just yesterday, the Olympics in Tokyo, they said, hey, the Olympics are still on. We're not canceling the Olympics. So they've closed all public schools from kindergarten through 12th grade in Japan, but the Olympics are going on. So let's talk about these travel restrictions, because there's going to be some politics back and forth, because there's a discrepancy between the State Department and the CDC. And let me bring this up here so everybody can see it. So country, learn about your destination. Japan, that's our destination. Let's see what you got. Wonderful configuration where you can't enter there, United States government. Okay, so Japan currently has a level 2 exercise increased caution. So that is the travel advisory from the State Department placed on Japan. What does that mean? If you look over here, and let me slide this a little bit so people can see what that means. What that means is exercise increased caution, right? 3 is reconsider travel. 4 is do not travel, right? So let's contrast the State Department here with China, because this is important. And why do I keep talking about this? Because of the Olympics, right? To me, that's like one of the signals that, hey, this is in fact the economic collapse if the Olympics are canceled. And we need to talk about that too. But let's look at China, right? So here's the State Department still. And let's look up at China. Oh yeah, I guess you can hit enter. Okay. So China, do not travel. China is a level 4, do not travel. So there it is right there. China saying, the State Department is saying, do not travel to China. The issue, though, is when it comes to the CDC's travel advisories. Because the State Department has 4 travel advisories, but the CDC only has 3. So where are you going? So we're going to Japan. We're going to the Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. Right there. We're going to Japan. What is the CDC saying? The CDC is saying level 2. The CDC is saying it is a level 2 practice enhanced precautions. But look at this. They only have 3 levels, right? So, that's going to be interesting there, because if the CDC puts it up to level 3, is the State Department going to put it up to level 4? And then if the State Department says, do not travel to Japan, what is that saying about the Olympics there? So, yes, point is, things are moving fluidly, right? They're moving fluidly. Let's see what they're saying about Korea, because we need to talk about Korea, and that's the next point that I'm going to transition in here too. But let's see what the State Department is talking about when they're talking about Korea here. So let's say we're going to travel to Korea. I guess I should have put South Korea, but that's what it defaulted to anyway. Okay. Right now, Korea is reconsider. Let's see what the CDC is saying Korea is, right? So let's say, oh, here we go. Oh, wait, so that's from, okay. Well, so that kind of answers our question. So the CDC is saying avoid all non-essential travel to Korea. We need to talk about Korea because Korea is an important thing here. And I want to bring this up. And I want to bring this up for a couple of different reasons. Let me just go ahead and pull this up. So this right here is another good resource. A couple of the resources that I use are the CDC's website. I use that Johns Hopkins website. This is, .mil, right? So this is the U.S. military's website. This is United States Forces Korea, right? So this is an official website. And this is kind of like a tracker just for Korea in and of itself. And this is very, very interesting. Yesterday's live stream, we talked about if you are a soldier stationed in Korea, you're basically you're not going to restaurants. You're not allowed to go to restaurants, only to take out. You're not allowed to go to places where there's more than 20 people, right? But here's why we need to talk about Korea. We need to update Korea because, look, we talked about this yesterday, and this was an update from Wednesday. Today, Friday, here's an update from yesterday, Thursday. But think about this. Look at what this says. United States Forces Korea employee who works at Camp Carroll tested positive for COVID-19. This is the third United States Forces Korea related person who has been confirmed with the virus. They're mandating the mandatory home quarantine for the Korean national male. So this is a Korean male who works on that base, on that camp. So if you think of a post or a base or a military base so that's called Camp Carroll. So that's where that is. So that person is a male. Okay, since his wife tested positive, and he is currently in isolation at the hospital. So also that wife is tested positive too, right? So this patient has not been in contact with any other of the affiliated personnel since going into quarantine, and he last visited Camp Carroll on February 20th. So the point is, he and his wife, right, tested positive. And then this person tested positive. It's spreading on our military bases in South Korea. The other one, I think, was that at Camp Carroll as well? Or where was the other one? That was the confirmed case. Where was that? That was the announcement. Okay, that was when they announced the one. Anyway, I can't remember if it was at Camp Carroll, Camp Walker, or where the one where the actual soldier was. But the point is that, Korea is now becoming hard to contain on the military bases. There's another point that I want to bring this up with, right? We have 23,500 military approximately stationed in South Korea. Here's why I want to bring that up, right? Because, people talking about martial law, boots on ground in the United States. The military is going to be working at community level to enforce quarantines and all this and that. So the question that I would have is, well, what if the quarantine, what if the military is falling ill themselves? How are they going to enforce a quarantine? That's my point with that. How are they going to enforce martial law if the virus is raging through the military population as well? That's why people think, Mike and I were talking about this yesterday, and it's where I kind of sort of disagreed. I think that Mike is right in that they're going to try and use this as an excuse to bring on more government, bring on more agencies, more control, more big government, less freedom, less liberty. But if the government and if the military themselves are dealing with this just with the general population at large, then they're going to be fighting just for their own survival, let alone containing this within the local communities, right? I mean, it just makes sense to me that way. So those are just some thoughts that I had there. And then I want to talk about a couple more things before closing off here today. So if anybody had a question about that, let me know in the chat. I'm going to go back and I'm going to check out here a little bit more of this chat. So there's a little bit of the markets there. We found in the bottom in silver. We're rolling over again. We'll see. If you're enjoying this live stream, kind of on the fly, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. If you like this concept of just me coming on and talking and sharing what I'm looking at. See, these are the things that are on my radar the most. That's what I'm trying to do here. If you like this format, if you don't like this format, right? Let me know in the comments below if you want me to come on more and talk if Mike can't do a live show. And I'm perfectly willing to do that. I'm going over more than I should on this one because I think the information is that important to get out there. So there's a couple more things that I want to put. There's a couple more things that I want to put out today in this live stream. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me and continuing to tune in. There's a couple more important points I want to make. Propaganda. Chris Martenson hit on this in his latest video yesterday. The mainstream media is starting to hit on this now. So here is, let me pull up the article again. So here's the Washington Post. Pence's new mission on coronavirus, a controlled message. Hey, it's a controlled message. And it's amazing just how they're putting in like bias and spin and stuff like that. But here's the crux of the matter. The White House moved on Thursday to tighten control of the coronavirus messaging by government health officials and scientists, directing them to coordinate all statements and public appearance with the office of the Vice President Mike Pence. Basically censorship. Basically they're saying that any of the messaging that's coming out from the CDC or the military or government officials in general, right? So that's what public is, right? Public means government pretty much. So by government, health officials, and scientists, and I'm sure it would include even more than that. But here's the thing with that, right? And this is going back to that article that I wrote over 2 weeks ago now about martial law. This shouldn't be news to anybody, right? This is not news, right? The government has been telling us this is exactly what we're going to do, right? So I don't know why this is news to anybody, but it is. Here's what I want to talk about, right? So first thing that came about was there was a lot of chatter saying, hey, the United States military is planning for a pandemic in the United States. And yes, they are. That is true. That is a fact. Here's mil.gov, and this is from that thing from February 20th. And this is just talking about how they were going to implement what they're talking about, what they're going to do at the local level. That's just from the Marines, and I wrote an article about this, highlighting this stuff. Here's just a couple of these things. The Marine Corps is postured to mitigate, contain, respond to, and recover the effects from a public health crisis, and we're capable of conducting assigned missions in a pandemic environment. Here's why I say this propaganda and this censorship and passing everything through Pence's office shouldn't be as a surprise to anybody. Because in what the United States military is talking about is, they say in accordance with, and let me find out where they talk about that specifically. I think I have to click on it first. Oh, here we go. The concept of operations in response to a viral disease crisis retains the phased approach structured outlined in NORTHCOM Plan 3551 in accordance with reference 1. Here's my point with that. That document says a lot of things. And one of the things that it talks about is the dissemination of information. And one of the things that they're going to do. And what they're going to do is, and we talked about this again on Monday or yesterday, they're going to do electronic warfare, right? So jamming cell phone frequencies, all that good stuff. They're going to do computer network operations, right? So one day they're going to, do a ping of death against my IP address because they know it, right? Because you can't hide. I mean, if somebody wants to find you, they'll find you. So I'll just pull the plug on my internet connection or whatever. They can do that, right? Or just do an internet kill switch in general to anybody, right? They're going to do psychological operations, right? PsyOps. They're going to be doing military deception. So, hey, why are these Marines gassing up here on diesel in their Humvees in my local town? What's going on here? Oh, we're just driving through, sir. There's nothing to worry about this at all. But they're telling you they're going to be doing military deception. They're going to be doing OPSEC. I mean, OPSEC, everybody should be doing OPSEC. But remember, let's not get it twisted. If somebody really wants to find you, they really will find you. That's why people are like, how can you talk about this stuff? Don't you get concerned? Well, I mean, if somebody wants to find you, they will. So they're going to be doing all this stuff in concert with the specified supporting and related capabilities. So, electronic warfare, that means they're going to send out a signal that's stronger than your signal, and they're going to jam your cell phone so you can't call anybody, right? That's kind of like an example of that. Or psychological warfare, or, anything like that. To usurp adversarial human decisions, right? So, the point is they're telling you already they will in fact be lying to you. They will be deceiving you. So, yes, that was my point with that. Where I was taking that is because somebody brought up the question, well, who do you believe, right? What do you believe? Put on the silver tinfoil hat helmet, Paul. This is no joke, but we could use some humor. Okay, I'll put it on. I will put on the tinfoil hat because we were talking about martial law. I'll just put it on for 1 second here. Let me put this on. I am terrible with this camera here. Anyway, boy, I can't get that on straight. Oh. It's like hard trying to turn it backwards. Forwards. There we go. All right, there we go. So there's my tinfoil hat today. So that probably looks really good, I'm sure. By myself, it looks weird. With Mike, it looks cool, but by myself, it looks weird. But since we're talking about martial law, yeah, it's not really tinfoil. They're telling us they're planning for this pandemic. So there was my tinfoil if anybody wanted to see that. My question with that is if the military's dealing with an outbreak themselves, how are they going to implement martial law? How's the government going to, create all these new agencies if, people in the government are dying off just as much as people in the regular population? So, where am I going with all of this? I'm going to all of this, to conclude on a couple different points here. And let me see. Let me pull up the charts here again, just as I look as if I'm trying to see what I'm going to conclude with here. Okay. Where am I going with all this? I'm going with all this because, as the outbreak spreads out, people will all need to make their own individual unique decisions for themselves and for their families. As the virus spreads out, people will start becoming more and more local in where they actually physically go. And this is self-evident, right? I mean, it just makes sense. But a couple things to consider here. The Olympics are on, right? The Olympics are on. Hey, the show must go on. The games must go on. But look at this, right? Let me pull this up. This is out of Switzerland. And let me translate this because I might think that I'm a linguist, but I'm not I'm not into that many languages. All right, let's see here. So this is coming out of the Federal Council, the portal of the Swiss government. So think about this, right? Coronavirus. The Federal Council bans major demonstrations. This is from today, right now. Because remember, it's different time zones. So they have already done this, the 28th of February. So this is actually what I was greeted to, right? In the morning as I was doing my scans and stuff. So let's get the key takeaway from this. The key takeaway from this is... Okay, so here we go. The absolute priority goes to the protection of the population. Good job, Swiss government. The Federal Council has thus decided to ban public and private events, right? Super churches, mega churches, right? Churches with over 1,000 people. That would be considered, I guess, a private event maybe. Or just if you can throw a really bad, awesome party with 1,000 people, I guess that would also be a private event. But the Federal Council has decided to ban public and private events that bring together more than 1,000 people simultaneously. Here's the kicker. This ban takes effect immediately. If there are going to be more than 1,000 people, it's banned. Period. In Switzerland, right? This is important. This is an important thing to understand. They're saying that we fear about this so much, anything over 1,000 people, banned. Here's where I'm going to tie it in. And especially for people who are watching this show or listening to this podcast, it matters. It's going to matter. It's going to matter for a very specific reason. First, why is Switzerland doing this? When if we look at the Johns Hopkins tracker, we can zoom in on Switzerland for a second real quick here. And let's see here. Let's click that if everybody can see. Where am I going here? 8. Okay. So we've got 8 confirmed cases in Switzerland. So 8 existing, 0 recovered, 0 deaths, 8 cases. Only 8 cases, and they have immediately banned all public gatherings and private gatherings of over 1,000 people. Here's why it matters, and here's why I'm going to bring it in, right? And I'm going to tie it into several things here. Let's see here. Where am I going to bring this into? Here we go. PDAC. People probably don't want me talking about this. People probably don't want me saying this. People are like, oh man, you're trying to rain on our parade. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, right? PDAC is in Toronto, Canada. PDAC is set to take place beginning on Sunday, this Sunday. People are flying into Toronto right now from all over the world. There's going to be more than 1,000 people at PDAC, right? The show must go on. The show must go on. So this is a press release from PDAC. This is a press release off of their website. As of yesterday, February 27th, 2020, the world's premier mineral exploration and mining convention returns to Toronto. Yeah! This is not good news because think about this. We just talked about Switzerland, and we talked about the 8 cases in Switzerland, and we talked about effective immediately if there's more than 1,000 people, it's banned. It's banned. Let's look at the Johns Hopkins tracker for Canada, and let's see what we can find. I don't think this is going to be very good news at all. And it's a spoiler alert. It's not good news because I actually looked at it before. Canada has 14 people that are confirmed to have coronavirus. Where is PDAC being held? It's being held in Toronto. Okay, let's zoom in on Toronto. Toronto has 5 confirmed cases. 5 confirmed cases. So right now, from all over the world, people are converging in Toronto. People are converging in Toronto right now from all over the world to attend PDAC. Where did that virus infection in Mexico, the first infection in Mexico, come from? From Italy, right? From Italy, not from China, right? So you have something, and look at the map here. Look at the map here, right? Look how close this is, right? I have been to, I have crossed through Detroit into Canada. I have been through this actual border crossing. I have personally been through this border crossing, I want to say 6 times. 6 times. So it would have been 3 times round trip. But, we're getting close now. We're getting kind of close. That's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. And remember, it goes so far beyond the travel restrictions now, right? Because the travel restrictions against foreign nationals in the United States is only from air travel. It's not from land travel, right? So Chinese nationals can be coming in anyway through other points of entry through sea or through land. Then you got things like this going on where PDAC says, hey, it's more important for the show to go on. So the show will go on, right? Granted, Canada's a huge country. I get that, right? But just the point is, everybody's making these fine balancing acts. What do we do? And it's a pickle. I understand it, right? What do we do? All of this money has been spent on PDAC. All of these hotels have been reserved. All of these flights have been booked. All of these taxi drivers, all of these Uber drivers, all of these restaurants. I get it. What's more important? I don't know. What would I do? I would not go. I would not go to that. Period. I would not go to that. Is it a loss? Yes, it is. Is it a hit? Yes, it is. Especially if you can't get those refunded. But you live to, make up that money another day, right? Because you don't want to, and if you say, well, that's selfish. Well, you're also not putting your family at risk if you got a family, right? If you're solo, then take that risk. But if you're not solo, you're putting your family at risk, in my opinion, right? I told people earlier that we were planning a summer vacation to California this summer. We had been talking about that for the better part of a year and a half. People don't know this, but I moved 3 times over the last 2 years, and it's very difficult moving, especially when one of them is in a cross-country move, right? So moved across country, moved again, bought a house, moved again. And all of our vacations over the last 15 years, generally speaking, have been in the Texas area. Shout out low blood pressure down there in Corpus Christi. Stay safe down there. Mostly California. Right? I've been to California dozens of times in my life, and we vacation a lot in California. So we were wanting to go back out there this summer. We will not be traveling to California this summer. But now, as this virus spreads, so it's just like I said, right? Before, people aren't going to be traveling out to Asia. Now, people aren't really going to be traveling out maybe to Italy or to France. Then people just aren't really going to be traveling out internationally in general, right? Then people just aren't really going to be crossing their borders anymore, right? Then people aren't really going to be traveling across the country. I'm at that stage. I have made the decision to not travel across the country. What's the next thing? I don't know. I mean, I really don't, because you have to be nimble and you have to be adaptive in dealing with this, right? There's a case in Chicago, right? There's a case in Wisconsin. I'm in the Midwest, right? I would not go to Chicago. Do I feel that I would be at risk for being exposed? Probably not. Do I want to take that risk? I don't want to take that risk, right? If I had something to do in Chicago, it would only be for fun, and I would just do something for fun somewhere else, right? So my point is that this is decisions that people have to make all over. So those are really what I got there today. I'm going to look through the chat, and go through some of the questions if we had some more questions, because here's the thing, right? This is individuals making decisions. This is families making decisions. This is communities making decisions. This is governments making decisions. This is businesses making decisions. Conference and event organizers making decisions, right? Everybody has to make these decisions. And the more it expands, the more decisions are going to be made to close this stuff off. Oh, there is one other topic I want to talk about. I forgot. Panic buying. We got to talk about panic buying real quick. Then I'm going to go through the questions that we had. If anybody had questions in the chat, let me know. Highlight at Silver Doctors, and I'll answer those questions. But I do want to talk about panic buying, because we've talked about this before. Because there's a very, very, very important thing to bring up here about panic buying. First thing I want to show is, what is this here? Oh, okay. This is in Italy. This is panic buying in Italy. So just look at this video, right? Here's the point that I want to make. Panic buying is going global right now. Panic buying is going global. This right here is in Italy. We don't need to hear that. I don't speak Italian necessarily. But that's in Italy, right? Look at all these people. Here's my point. You don't want to be caught up in this. You don't want to be caught up in the panic buying. Look at all of that close contact. Look at all of that close contact, right? Look at all of this close contact in Italy right now. Look at all of these people, right? The CDC says, if you're within 6 feet, hey, that sucker, you're walking through that mist of aerosolized, super small nanoparticles, right? So that's panic buying in Italy. There's examples of this all over the world. And I'm not sure why Twitter's not going from full screen. I don't want full screen Twitter. I want, Anyway, okay, let's see here. Well, let me just do the back button. There we go. Okay, that's how to close out of it. So panic buying is going global, and it's happening in the United States, and that's the point that I wanted to bring up. And it's happening in an orderly manner right now. This is from this morning. This is out of Hawaii. This is anecdotal evidence, and this is all over the place, right? So here's just a picture, right? Plenty of paper towels, but toilet paper, hand sanitizer, and alcohol. I think alcohol, they're talking about just the alcohol hand sanitizer. I don't think they're talking about like isopropyl alcohol. They could be though. Hand sanitizer and toilet paper is out in Sam's Club in Hawaii. There was also a video circulating about Costco and just showing people from Costco, carts coming in, lining up all around the warehouse club there in Costco. Check this out. Here's from Jason Burak. He tweeted this out. People know Jason Burak. He does great videos over there at what's it called? Wall Street for Main Street. But this is in Washington D.C. People are starting to buy and load up in Washington D.C., right? And, this is in addition to other kinds of buying that's going to be going on. For preparation for hurricanes, for preparations for other natural disasters that just naturally come. And now you have this on top of it that's building, right? So where am I going with that? Here's where I'm going with that. If the panic buying has not started in your area, then it's coming to your area. If you have toilet paper in your area, might want to grab some. If you have hand sanitizer in your area, might want to grab some. Masks, I haven't seen those locally, so good luck with that. If you got them, buy them. You want to be doing the panic buying before the panic buying starts, because the whole point about panic buying is exceptionally dangerous in this circumstance, because we're talking about a virus that you cannot see and that people can be asymptomatic carriers of, which we started talking about back on the 20th of January, and first time we started talking about this on Silver Doctors Live. So if you can't see it, And if you got all these people in a panic, it's not like Black Friday. It's not like panic buying in anticipation of a hurricane, because there's an unknown disease that is potentially deadly and you don't know where it is and you're in all that close proximity. So get your preps going now while there is the chance. Get your weight up now while silver is falling with the broader stock market. Get your weight up now while gold is still falling with the broader stock market. So I'm going to address a couple of these final questions in chat here, and then I'm going to sign off. I appreciate everybody for hanging out with me. I have talked for an hour and a half. My throat is rather dry, so I'm going to be cutting it off here in a minute. And let's see. Here's something. Basel III. Do you know Basel III? If you do, what can you do to show people about it? People should know. I said a long time ago that Basel III wasn't going to be for gold like the gold bugs thought it was going to be. As a matter of fact, let me give a shout out to my Matt at Silver Fortune, because he interviewed me a long time ago. And he asked me about Basel III. Go look up that interview on Matt's YouTube channel. Silver Fortune is his name. That's the YouTube channel. Silver Fortune. His name is Matt. He interviewed me and asked me about Basel III, and I said it wasn't going to be a good thing for gold one way or another. Long term, I mean, I guess it could be, but in the intermediate term, it was just another way of more governments to put gold on their books as a tier 1 asset, and the way they were classifying it in relation to other clear task assets and the reshuffling and reprioritizing and things like that. The reason why I said that I didn't think it was going to be good for gold is because it was just a way for the biz enabling more countries to borrow against their gold and then to lose their gold, right? So it's more way for the biz to come riding into the rescue, for the IMF to come riding into the rescue and get people to get all levered up on their gold, that tier 1 asset, and then bankrupt those nations, get their gold, and force austerity. I mean, all that kind of stuff that we got going on there. Raul, I hope I answered your question with that. Yeah. Look into the 90-year cycle. Mason Tricks, yeah. I mean, lots of cycles going on. I'm not sure exactly which specific cycle that you're talking about, but one of the cycles that I think is indeed true and interesting is that Neil Howe Strauss, I can't remember the fellow who died, the two that theorized the fourth turning, right? Which is like, every 80 years there's a fourth type of turning. Yeah, I mean, that's self-evident, whatever you want to call it. We're in that loss of trust in public institutions. And if you want to know whether we're in the fourth turning or not, then look to your alternative media. And if your alternative media says, I do not trust what the government says, well, there you go. We're in that fourth turning. What do I think? I do not trust what the government says, period. First and foremost, I assume that they are lying to me. So I have lost all trust, right? I mean, it's just a matter of that. It's just a simple fact of the matter. Good question there, Mason Tricks. Cycles are real. I think cycles do, in fact, cycles are real, right? Spring, summer, fall, winter. I mean, we go through cycles, right? The life-death cycle. I mean, everything has a cycle, if you think about it in that sense. Silver Doctors, interesting. Okay, so it doesn't look like there are many more questions in the chat. So I have been going for an hour and a half here, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. I do want everybody to comment below if you can. If you like me coming on solo, why? If you like me not coming on solo, why? Please let me know that, because your input is critical. I will watch the comments. I will look at the comments. I might not respond to them, but I will especially be looking at these comments here. I don't even have the chance to look at all the comments, quite frankly. We have an intern that helps us out, and he helps us out with posting, with comments and things like that. But me, myself, I might not be able to address them all. But please let me know in this one. Also, smash that thumbs up button. If you like this video, I appreciate the thumbs up. And more importantly, though, are the comments. If you think that it's worth my while to come on solo and talk about the things that I'm looking at. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in today. I appreciate everybody for tuning in and giving me the time, for asking the questions in the chat. This is Half Dollar signing out. I will talk to you guys on Monday at 11. I can't remember what Mike said about traveling. I don't know. We also don't know if he's going to be put in quarantine, Hopefully he's not. I don't think he will. I don't think that things are going to develop that rapidly between now and the end of the week, but you never know. So until then, as Mike would say, be real, get your weight up. Peace.